For the main core of the Democratic Party, particularly the class that donates the money, runs the campaigns, staffs the offices, these are people that have advanced degrees, they make a decent amount of money. They do not have to live with the drawbacks from migrants that a lot of the actual run-of-the-mill Democrats do. They haven't changed their mind about immigration at all. They are still very pro-open border, and that is why the Democratic Party still is not budging on this issue.
Welcome to The Debrief, where we talk with the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the headlines they're covering and where the story's going next. I'm Sarah Bedford, and I'm here with commentary editor Conn Carroll. And Conn, the Senate border talks have effectively collapsed, and as you just reminded me before we began this recording, that is something you had predicted. Why do you think we never saw a border deal come to fruition?
The bottom line is that the Democrats don't want to solve this problem. Now, when you have the Democratic mayors and governors out there complaining to the White House, what they're complaining about is that they're not getting enough money to help feed, clothe, house, provide education for the migrants. So when Democrats say they want to solve the border crisis, what they mean is federal bailouts for governors and mayors in order to help deal with the migrant crisis. What they do not mean is actually stopping the flow of migrants at the border, and that's what Republicans want. And so until you have a Democratic Party that actually wants to stop the flow of migrants at the border, you're not going to get a deal.
The Texas governor is trying to stop the flow of migrants at the border and is locked in an intense legal battle right now with the Biden administration over razor wire fencing along the southern border. Tell us about what's going on in that case, and are we going to see that wire come down?
Sure. So the short answer is we'll see some of it come down, but this is actually a lot smaller battle right now than it probably will become later. So what happened is the Texas National Guard has been putting razor wire along the border, and then the Border Patrol will come along after they do that and cut it. So Texas then went to federal court to try to get a restraining order on Border Patrol telling them you legally cannot come in and cut down this wire. This eventually went up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, look, we're not going to enforce this restraining order. The Border Patrol is allowed to go and cut that wire. What this order did not say was that Texas didn't come back and put that border wire back up. And although in order to expedite the Supreme Court ruling, the Biden administration mentioned the Texas National Guard taking over a state park that is state property on the border, the Biden administration still has not fought the Texas's use of that state park. And that's important because that is an area where Border Patrol has been using to process migrants into the country. And so Biden still has not yet challenged Texas's ability to use their own state property to try to defeat the Border Patrol's efforts to process migrants into the country as fast as possible. I do think that legal challenge is coming, though. And so when you look at a lot of Supreme Court or a lot of Republicans, conservatives who criticize Amy Coney Barrett on the wire ruling, I think she was actually wise in delaying it, waiting for better facts. Because I think Texas will have a lot better facts if the case is Biden trying to say the federal government can come over and take over a state park for the sole purpose of not enforcing immigration law.
So that leads me to my next question, which is right now it seems like we're talking about a technicality over who can and cannot cut border wire right now. Could this broaden into a challenge as to whether one administration has the authority to flout the law and whether states can adhere to federal law in the case when the federal government is unwilling to enforce it? I mean, could this be a bigger case about states' rights?
We are heading in that direction. So you had you had Arizona versus the United States a number of years ago, about over a decade ago, that sided with the government saying that there were a slew of these Arizona measures that made life more difficult for immigrants, and they said these were not valid because the United States has primacy law. Those laws were so much less strict than what we're looking at now, what Texas is trying to do, and the federal government is to a much larger extent not even trying to enforce the law. It's just a different fact pattern, and you've had such an explosion of illegal immigration since that time, not to mention the makeup of the court is more conservative.
Right.
So yes, I do think we are headed to a case that revisits U.S. versus Arizona and provides a much better fact pattern for immigration restrictionists, and of course the court is going to be more open to their arguments.
And finally, after the New Hampshire primaries this past week, we learned that for people who voted in the primary, immigration was one of their top issues. This may just be me, but are we seeing something like a vibe shift in the mainstream Democratic consensus on open borders, and maybe some fracturing within the Democratic Party about whether this is a good idea after years of having the Democratic Party define their position as just the opposite of whatever Donald Trump said?
Short answer is no. So you have the general public is definitely shifting, has shifted in that direction, and you have some Democratic constituencies that are having to face this problem firsthand. You look at African American communities in places like Chicago or New York or DC saying, look, why are the Democrats we elected placing the interests of migrants over us? So there is some tension there. But for the main core of the Democratic Party, particularly the class that donates the money, runs the campaigns, staffs the offices, these are people that have advanced degrees, they make a decent amount of money. They do not have to live with the drawbacks from migrants that a lot of the actual run-of-the-mill Democrats do. They haven't changed their mind about immigration at all. They are still very pro-open border, and that is why the Democratic Party still is not budging on this issue.
Well, Conn, thank you so much for being here today. You can get more writing from Conn and the rest of the commentary team at washingtonexaminer.com.